Like, comment and subscribe smiley face. 50 Shades of Wrong. Part 2. I'm back, with part 2 of my saga with Christian Grey. I have a desk job and it's a slow Friday, so I want to get this all out while it's fresh on my mind. So I left Christian, for the second time that day, at the airport. I didn't get home till about 9 that night, and unfortunately due to that, my class assignment ended up being late. I put in as much effort as I could until midnight, but just couldn't finish it all before the deadline. That should have been a sign to me. I take a lot of pride in my assignments and I have never once before or since turned in something late. Even when I managed to get myself a nice concussion, I was still on point for class. Anyway, I was salty with Christian for a bit. Sure, he didn't make me stay behind to miss my assignment, but he pestered me to do it, which was annoying enough. Things from then on became more rocky with us. 2 months into us dating, he kept bringing up the topic of living together, not in the future, but like soon. Specifically in my 1-bedroom home. I told him no. Full stop. 1. I'd only been living on my own for about 0.6 months maybe at that time, and I was enjoying living by myself, and having to be responsible for no one but me and my cat. 2. We'd only been dating for 2 months and met once. That is not a thing. He told me he respected my wishes but still would bring the topic up constantly. Another thing that put me off about Christian was before he came to visit, he gloated about buying me material items. He quickly learned that didn't faze me, but being newly single and living on my own, having help with groceries, rent etc. was really appreciated. Things I needed. He turned sour at this, basically implying that as a woman I needed to enjoy shopping, makeup, getting my nails done and whatnot. I hate shopping, 1 because I don't like stores. Also, I'm very alternative and most brick shops have absolutely nothing that interests me besides leggings and underwear. Lastly, I'm short as hell, but curvy. Everything is too big and too small on me at the same time. I do enjoy makeup and nails, but I can get those things done myself, and I only go to the nail salon in the summer for pedicures really. None of those things are priorities when I'm living paycheck to paycheck. The joke is that when he got here, he only paid for the dinner and that's it. I spent roughly $500 to $600 on him alone that week, and it wasn't like I had that kind of money to spare. He would look around my place and tell me things that needed to be fixed and that he'd get them for me, so we made trips to some repair shops, Lowe's, etc. We would cart all the stuff, then when we'd get to the register and get the total, Christian would look at me wide-eyed expectantly. Then I'd pull out my card, and on the way to the car he'd say, "Well, if I'd known it would have cost that much I would have paid for it. Are you kidding me, dude? You saw the total on the screen then literally looked at me to pay for it." This happened 2 to 3 times till I got the drill, then just refused to go shopping with him. Don't get me wrong, I don't expect a guy to spend money on me, that's not the point. But if you're going to offer to help someone, but back out at the cash register and make the other person pay, you are a special kind of awful. Funny thing is that he'd buy me super cheap shoes and lingerie randomly, and by cheap I mean prices even Wish.com couldn't beat. It was always stuff I hated, and I later learned he'd buy me stuff that catered to his fetishes. But I found it extremely insulting. I'd let him know I was struggling to pay a bill, and instead of helping with that, he'd buy me nighties or a crappy pair of shoes. He deduced me to a dumb female that could be pleased by buying her material items, and he was proud of it. I told him eventually that if he isn't going to help me where it counts, don't buy me crap. I need a roof over my head more than I need a stupid pair of 5-inch heel boots. So needless to say, I couldn't trust him to actually help with rent and utilities, so that was another reason living with him was a no-go, but the most important was that it was way too soon in the relationship. Things with Christian got more strange and soon he confessed to me that he was a dom. Okay. I'm not here to shame anyone's preference, but I doubt someone can claim they are a dom if they haven't slept with someone in over 9 years. Christian hadn't had a relationship or even a one-night stand with a woman since his wife left him, and he didn't have a reason except for, it's because of my illness, which I highly doubted. Brain cancer is a big thing, and any illness can be hard on a relationship, but that doesn't mean people won't want to have a fling or ons with you. But at the time I didn't look into it too much. Christian would soon start bringing lots and lots of adult fantasies into the conversation. And I don't mean during welcome times. I mean we'd be talking about clouds and then he'd link me a random website with a bunch of X-rated toys asking which ones I liked. We could not have a normal conversation, ever. He would soon start sending me random links to hardcore adult sites, other toys, women he found attractive, etc. Just constantly. He would write these embarrassing adult stories about us and guys I could have vomited from the cringe. I wish I'd save some of those walls of texts he sent me. This is coming from a guy who hadn't been touched in almost a decade. I have to say it now, but it does not help that I was not attracted to Christian in any way. If anything, I can sleep well at night knowing that I did not have physical contact with this man. I physically couldn't. The one time we did try to hook up I said I had a stomach ache, which was true. Christian thought he was Michelangelo's depiction of David I. Don't think this man ever looked in the mirror once, but ignorance is bliss I guess. Physically he was not my type, and he was just the kind of guy that turned off a woman by speaking. He fancied himself a genius, on par with Einstein and Hawking, but no one just recognized his talent and thought process. But boy did he peacock his intelligence, and God he insulted mine and everyone else's constantly. This is coming from the guy who didn't finish high school, but by his words, he was far past high school level by the time he would have graduated anyway, so the flaunting of book smarts, inexperience in the bedroom and the wafer-thin neckbeard incel look, this man was a walking lady deterrent. So many things he sent me and claimed he liked made me retch, but it was also hilarious because he'd likely never done any of them. Christian just misunderstood all of it and made it honestly disgusting. His idea of it was tossing a woman around, or at least imagined he could, and making them subservient 24/7. It was sickening. He soon started gaslighting me and at the time I didn't know what that was. I honestly thought I was losing my fricking mind and he would press me to get medicated. I have depression and anxiety like a lot of people, but I've personally learned to cope, and I don't feel the need for medication. If I did, I'd certainly go for it. But I have had it under control for a while and I'm honestly happy. Christian would not stand for that. He would lecture me. He also imagined himself a doctor and even said, I know enough to be able to self-diagnose. He tried to diagnose me with bipolar, schizophrenia, and OCD, on top of my depression and anxiety. What was sick though is he would laugh about it. Like he knew something I didn't, and that I was also lesser than him for having any form of mental illness. That angered me and I told him right then and there if he did not try to stop diagnosing me we were done. End of story. I guess my tone was that serious because he actually stopped. I'd been misdiagnosed before by an actual professional and it's not fun. Mistakes happen, doctors aren't perfect, but the misdiagnosis has left me with some lifelong internal issues that have to be monitored occasionally. So I sure as hell wasn't going to let a 34-year-old man who lives at Mum's house tell me what was wrong with me. Instead of diagnosing me, he turned to another kind of odd behavior. I was going out a lot at the time on weekends. Drinking with friends, seeing family, weekend getaways. I was living it up in my 20s as one does. Whenever I'd go out with friends, Christian would change his tone. Not to one of cruelty, but he'd have to remind me of my depression and anxiety, and that if I drink I will make it worse. I have never once driven a car drunk, been kicked out of a party, or a bar for drunken behavior. Often I am the DD and will not drink at all. And I never get drunk in public places like bars, clubs, etc. I'll get a buzz going, but I refuse to get anything overbuzzed because I like to keep my wits about me. I made the mistake of telling him I have a heart murmur, due to my prior misdiagnosis, and he would always hang that over my head. I ignored Christian's cries for me to stay home, so he had to up his game. Oh yes. He had to scare me now. He started saying really off-the-wall things. One example is I was going to get my flu shot and I let him know. I got caught up at work that day, put it off, and didn't do it until a few weeks later. I told Christian again that I was going to get one, and he thought I already did. I told him I had to put it off for work, but I was OMW to the clinic at that moment. After my shot was done I was met with a slew of texts. Asking how could I be so stupid as to put it off. What if I would have gotten sick? If I had died he couldn't have been there to protect me. He went on to describe what it was like to have the flu and die from it, and pneumonia, bronchitis, etc. I've only ever been sick maybe 0.3 to 4 times in my life. I've only ever gotten the flu once. I still strongly believe in vaccines though. IDK what it is about me, you can put me in a room full of people as sick as hell and I won't catch it. Never broken or even fractured a bone, no matter how hard I've fallen. Once I fell off stairs and trees constantly. I was an idiot. Maybe I'm living the real life unbreakable, who knows. Night Shyamalan, give me money if this is true. Christian kept on with trying to make my life a living fear factor. I used to live in a spot right next to the ocean, and you could see the water from my windows. Seriously, it was unbelievable, and for what I was paying it was almost too good to be true. But it was just a little old lady who needed to rent out her home for a bit of extra income. She wasn't looking to price gouge. I miss her and that place a lot. We talked a lot and she baked me so many cookies and brought pounds upon pounds of food for my cat. Anyways. Even though I lived close to the water, it was a rural neighborhood. We lived next to a bird sanctuary and had neighbors with chickens and outdoor animals, so in turn, we got coyotes and other predators. Plenty of our neighbors owned guns for that reason. So occasionally you'd hear a gun go off in the distance, especially in the summer and fall when the dogs would come hunting for pets, small animals. Christian heard one on a Skype call we were having and asked what it was. I just told him casually, probably a neighbor shooting at a coyote or some other predator. And he just goes off again. He asked me was I afraid, and told him of course not. 1, not my property and it was in the back of us, and 2, it was not a break-in, it's my neighbor most likely. Christian started rambling, so I tuned him out. But one sentence stuck out to me. He said, "There's not much stopping one of those bullets from ending up in your skull." I actually laughed. I just started wailing in laughter. I told him the odds of that are very unlikely, and if for some reason it did, how could it matter to me? I'd be dead, or at least brain dead. He was not pleased with my logic. It took me a while, but I soon put together that even with my lack of confidence at the time, I was very independent and strong-willed. I had friends and family who cared for me, but as an adult, I can only 100% rely on myself, so I need to take care of myself. Christian did not take kindly to a woman being so self-assured, and he tried to wear me down. Scaring me wasn't an option, so he started going back to my looks. My clothes were too dark and depressing, as he put it. I didn't wear heels enough. Seriously, this guy had a massive fetish for heels, and I soon learned more about it. He berated me for dressing like a punk, and that men prefer women who wore tea dresses and heels. He didn't like that I had career plans and that I am ambitious when it comes to bettering myself. It was always a threat to him, so he started talking down my dreams. I'd never make it as an illustrator. I'd only ever be able to work certain jobs due to my limited knowledge. But he assured me he'd be able to excel, so he'd take care of me, of course. I didn't need to fret. Even after all this, against my better judgment, I let Christian come over again to stay after the holidays. I had a week off, and he wanted to stay for a week and a half. Okay, not too bad. Maybe us talking in person will clear the air. I also was thinking to myself, that if this second trip goes poorly, this is it. I'm done. There is something wrong with this man greatly and want out. The last installment to my story will be about the second coming of Christian Grey as well as the breakup.